The story opens with a hacker named Bill, who's in the middle of hacking into the police department's CCTV system. Just then, an officer notices something odd flicker on his screen, but doesn't think much of it until an alarm goes off alerting the police that a bank has been robbed. The department immediately sends its best team and activates its own surveillance system. The computer scans every camera in the city, but by the time they spot the thieves, their hands are completely empty. Several police cars rush to the scene, only to find the street totally empty. Back at the station, the screens are still showing footage of the thieves. And that's when they realize their own computer system has been hacked too. The thieves had clearly already escaped. The next day, police discover only one vault was actually robbed, belonging to a businessman who kept half the password to his $500 crore account written in a notebook. In a building, the thieves had taken over the office of a digital finance company. Some employees were injured in the process, and soon the entire staff was taken hostage. One employee was forced to open the company's main door. This company worked with major clients, including the owner of the country's biggest crypto company, whose account held more than $10 billion. The gang leader told the others to copy that information too. But right then, police arrived, and the thieves bolted for the elevator. John, the gang's leader, was in a nearby cafe, hoping to slip out without drawing attention. But he accidentally walked into frame while a woman was taking a photo on her phone. As soon as the elevator opened, a chase broke out between the gang and the police. The criminals knocked several people down while looking for an exit, but eventually found themselves cornered, and officers closed in. A brutal fight broke out, during which the thieves took Captain Sam hostage. The other officers couldn't risk shooting, so they had to watch helplessly as the criminals dragged the captain into the elevator. Outside, John told his driver to leave, even though the rest of the gang hadn't made it back yet. As the elevator rose to the upper floors, Sam fought back against the thieves again. But outnumbered 4-1, he was overpowered, handcuffed, and left behind as they fled. Sam soon freed himself and chased after them. Since the gang had come prepared with parachutes, they leapt straight off the tower to escape. While fleeing, they shoved a woman who ended up dangling off the ledge, and Sam had to stop to help her. Because even the elevator had been hacked, one of the thieves crashed into another jumper and rode down with him, landing safely. As the thieves came down onto a hotel rooftop, a second police team was already waiting for them, and a fierce battle broke out. The criminals easily took down the officers and used specialized gear to escape across the roof. They quickly changed clothes, while Bill worked to delete all the security camera footage so the police's facial recognition system couldn't track them. The police's entire CCTV system went completely dark. Officers resorted to strapping body cameras onto themselves to record everyone passing by, hoping facial recognition would eventually flag someone. John, having changed his appearance, made it into the hotel and started creating distractions to pull the manager's attention away from his gang, who moved through different rooms disguised at times as tourists, at times as staff. Meanwhile, Sam, recognizing one of the thieves from the elevator fight, spotted her earring and immediately gave chase, but she slipped away by blending in among other hotel guests. Suddenly, the camera system flagged a face passing through that didn't match anyone in its database, so the police began chasing that man too. An officer's camera lens got briefly smudged, and John used the opening to slip past. The officer team split up to chase two different men, but one of the thieves disguised herself as a woman and someone else as an elderly man, and they got away in the confusion. At the same time, a special light show was going on in the lobby, letting other thieves disguised as security guards blend into the crowd. The moment police closed in, the criminals dove and disappeared beneath a platform. Later, back at the station, the crypto CEO showed up furious, smashing things because his account had been emptied. The police officers regrouped to plan their next move, and Inspector Lara suggested they needed to bring back their retired boss. Sam questioned how one old man could help with facial recognition tracking, but Lara reminded him that their AI system was now useless since it had been hacked. What they needed instead was someone who knew how to do police work the old-fashioned way. So, the team was sent to bring back a legendary retired officer, a man whose case file was full of remarkable arrests. He was a specialist without equal, But his career carried one dark mark, a mission where his own partner had lost their life because of him. When the two officers reached his neighborhood, they were surprised to find him simply out walking his dog. His name was Vaughn. He walked over to a cafe and sat down at their table, pretending to just be a passerby, but he'd actually clocked Helen and Rock following him all day, and even knew both their names. It's revealed Vaughn is the daughter of his late best friend, and that he hadn't seen her since childhood. Vaughn congratulates her on carrying on her late father's badge number as a legacy, then rattles off every mistake the two of them had made while tailing him, including having secretly stolen Rock's badge without him noticing. Shortly after, Vaughn arrived at the station and reviewed all the footage the police had gathered. Within just a few minutes of watching, he'd identified every member of the gang because each of them had, at some point, glanced up toward a CCTV camera to check if it was still on. Meanwhile, at their hideout, John started beating Bill for wasting time since it had nearly gotten them caught. Someone tried to defend Bill, but Bill shoved back angrily too, frustrated that after years spent staying invisible, he'd finally been caught on camera. A fight broke out, and someone pulled a knife, forcing the rest of the gang to step in and calm things down. After collecting every screenshot they could of the thieves, Vaughn noticed a man in a long coat who kept appearing repeatedly across the footage. Police also got hold of the photo the woman at the cafe had taken, and everyone concluded this man must be part of the gang too. Vaughn recalled an old agent known by the code name Shadow, who had served on an elite team during the war. Shadow had gone rogue in pursuit of wealth and vanished without a trace in 1999. Vaughn realizes the mystery man is Shadow, now returned, and wants to send a team after him, only to be told that surveillance work is now done entirely digitally, and they don't even have a dedicated field surveillance team anymore. Still, Vaughn is tasked with building a new one from scratch. No one has much faith in the plan, since there isn't enough time to properly train anyone new. Later, in the gym, Helen is seen trying to train, but the other officers mock her, telling her she's too young for police work. She ignores them at first, but eventually snaps and easily takes down one officer in front of his own men. Vaughn, watching this, quietly congratulates Helen afterward, telling her she's earned his respect. That evening, he sits on the rooftop drinking and thinking about the death of Helen's father, silently promising his late friend that he'll look after her properly. The next day, Vaughn announces he'll personally train a new surveillance team, and Helen becomes part of it. He teaches them how to move without drawing attention, so no one would peg them as police, and stresses that every small detail has to be remembered, no matter what chaos unfolds. On their first day out on the street, the team poses as ordinary civilians to keep their cover. But Vaughn keeps Helen close in the surveillance van, since she's his hidden advantage, and whenever one of the others slips up, he calls them out sharply. 12 days in, Bill is trying to plan one final job so that John can retire from the game for good, and the whole gang can walk away forever. He's tracked down the server location for the CEO's crypto account, but breaking into the digital vault itself proves difficult. The story then flashes back a few years, revealing that all the thieves grew up as orphans whom John used to visit regularly and give money to. The boys had helped John out back in 1999 when police were after him, and they've all stuck together ever since. On the 15th day, Helen steps out to grab food, but on her way back to the van, she spots a group of drunk men harassing some girls. She's told to call in regular police instead, but she ignores that and confronts the men herself. A fight breaks out. She fights well, but can't take on that many alone. Just then, Vaughn arrives, beats the men off, and drives them away. Back in the van, Vaughn scolds her for nearly blowing the mission. Helen argues that she doesn't feel like they're doing anything that actually matters, and Vaughn finally tells her what really happened to her father. Back in his own days undercover, Vaughn had spent 8 grueling months on a case with her father when they witnessed some criminals trying to kidnap a child. Vaughn jumped in to stop them, and the gang nearly killed him for it. Helen's father stepped in to help, and the kidnappers shot him before fleeing. With tears in his eyes, Vaughn tells her that police work demands thinking carefully before acting, always. Not long after, Vaughn believes he's spotted John in a local market and alerts the team. Everyone mobilizes to surround the area, while Vaughn tells Helen to tail the target up close, since she's the only officer John has never seen before. When John notices a couple of officers nearby, he starts kissing someone to hide his face. Helen pretends to search for something on the ground and catches a glimpse of his reflection, confirming his identity for certain. To avoid drawing suspicion, the team lets John walk away without confronting him, but continues tailing him and identifies which building he enters. Helen decides to go in after him too, and John, sensing something's off, pulls out his knife. He notices John glancing toward Helen twice, as if he suspects she might recognize him. So, John ducks into a nearby building and pretends to be someone's father. He also manages to sneakily remove the Bluetooth earpiece from her ear. He starts a conversation with John, getting a clean shot of his face through a hidden camera planted inside a piece of fruit. He cuts off the top part of the fruit containing the camera and tosses it aside, complaining it's sour. But John keeps watching them closely. So he breaks into a nearby empty flat, and they slip inside, startling the woman living there, who has to be restrained to keep her quiet. Using the elevator camera, the team figures out which floor John got off on, so Rock moves quickly and installs a few cameras in that area, which lets them determine John's apartment number, 8002. Now, the police are finally in position to make their next move. The team rents an apartment across the street to keep an eye on John from a distance and dig through his trash. They find torn-up scraps but nothing conclusive. Meanwhile, John spends his time popping bubble wrap. He keeps up his cover as a friendly neighbor at the market, and John comes over for some small talk, all while secretly patting him down. As the two chat about their fabricated backstories, John shakes his hand and remarks on how strong his grip is, asking if he lifts weights. He deflects, saying he's just exercised since childhood, so naturally his hands are strong. John then invites him over for dinner, and to everyone's surprise, he agrees. That evening, Vaughn and Helen pay the woman living in the flat to let them borrow her apartment for the dinner. When John arrives, he scans every corner of the room using hidden devices. During dinner, he places his phone on the table and Helen does the same, hoping to extract information from it. John keeps firing off questions to check whether their stories line up. And because he actually knows the real details of Helen's childhood, he starts to realize that he's been the one quietly protecting her from a distance all along. John asks someone to dig up more on Vaughn and Helen's history. But the police, aware they're being hacked, have already planted fake profiles for both of them just in case. A few minutes later, someone knocks at the door. And when Vaughn opens it, he finds Bill's twin brother Tim standing there. A brawl breaks out. Vaughn manages to get the upper hand, but Tim pulls out another gun and starts firing wildly, barely missing him each time. The two of them are now locked in an intense fight. Wall, watching the fight play out on his screens, isn't worried because this was all part of his plan from the start. During dinner, he'd already hacked into Helen's phone and now has live access to footage from inside the police station itself. The surveillance team across the street can't see the actual fight since their cameras have been hacked too, feeding them fake footage instead. They only grow suspicious when Helen walks into a room on their real feed while her double is still shown sitting at the table. Bill sends his brother Tim in as backup. The team, realizing something's wrong, opens fire rapidly to force Vaughn to take cover. Then he escapes down the balcony and out a window using a specialized cable. The next day, the surveillance team is back out on the street while other officers search John's apartment. They find a cupboard packed with bubble wrap, which makes Vaughn realize it's connected to a code Bill uses. Just then, a truck rams the surveillance van, sending it spinning into the police building itself. The truck splits in two on impact. After ramming the van again to knock everyone unconscious, a group of thugs pours out and attacks. Several officers are killed, and police cars are blown up with explosives. Lara realizes this whole assault is meant to provoke them, so she orders the surveillance team to stay put on the street and keep hunting for John. Helen, regaining consciousness, drags Vaughn out of the wrecked car, grabs a gun, and joins the fight, taking down several attackers with precise shots. Vaughn soon comes to as well, and together they finish off the last of the men left in the building. Above them, on a beam, is the code that John had encoded using the bubble wrap pattern. Vaughn tells Helen to contact the intelligence team so they can decode it too. Meanwhile, the rest of the gang was making their way straight into the police station itself. At the same time, two members of the surveillance team track Shadow down to an old orphanage. Just as Lara is about to give them further orders, the power in the police building cuts out and the whole team loses contact with each other. Inside the orphanage, John finds himself surrounded by thugs and realizes Bill has betrayed him. But even at his age, he's still a fierce fighter, taking on multiple men at once with his knife without much trouble, though he does take a few injuries along the way. Back at the station, officers keep fighting off attackers who seem specifically focused on hunting him down, since there's now a massive bounty on his head. But he manages to take several of them down in return. Helen sneaks around until she finds a satellite phone and tries contacting Rock to tell him about the code. But a thug attacks her. A fierce fight follows, and after a hard struggle, Helen wins by throwing the woman out through a window. Fortunately, backup arrives just in time, and the police finally bring the fight to an end. In the orphanage, John, after a brutal battle, has taken down all the thugs sent after him. Furious, he raises his knife toward a camera, not realizing his brother had already arrived, since his presence wasn't part of the original plan. Realizing keeping John alive posed too much risk, the brother jumps in to fight him. Both of them are excellent fighters, going at each other relentlessly until they crash through a window and fall. He sees a knife plunge into his stomach. His brother tries to use the knife against him again, but John twists it back on him and kills his own favorite son figure in the gang. Police begin closing in around the orphanage. With no other option left, a devastated Bill has no choice but to trigger the explosion that was always part of the real plan. Sometime later, Laura informs Vaughn and Helen that, after the earlier mission, she'd moved the CEO's crypto funds into the police department's own digital account for safekeeping. But when they check the vault, it's empty. It turns out the thieves had disguised themselves and infiltrated as part of a fake backup team, robbing the vault while everyone else was busy rescuing the injured. At the orphanage, John crawls out of the rubble alive, crying over the loss of Tim. The police quickly surround him, and he surrenders, saying he'll confess to everything. Back at the station, Lara restarts the AI surveillance system, and it quickly locates the remaining thieves at the same hotel as before. Police give chase, and the gang scatters in different directions. Vaughn tracks Bill down to a laundry room, and the two of them fight. Two more thieves jump in and tell Bill to run, saying they'll handle Vaughn themselves. The two fight Vaughn together, overwhelming him. Outside, Helen notices a big public event happening and guesses Bill must be hiding somewhere in the crowd, but she can't spot him. Police return her phone and tell her to call Bill directly. But since criminal devices can't be traced, Helen has to visually pick him out from the crowd herself. She notices someone glancing repeatedly at a nearby camera and instantly recognizes the tell Vaughn had taught her. Meanwhile, in the laundry room, Vaughn knocks one thief unconscious with a tool and locks the other inside a washing machine. Elsewhere, John, to create a distraction, drops his phone and starts fighting the police, setting off an officer's gas grenade and using the chaos to take several of them down. Rock finds Helen and hands her his earpiece before continuing the search. Someone had changed clothes to avoid detection. By this point, Bill was entering a train station with Rock right on his tail. But before Rock can radio it in, John, passing by, stabs him, striking him down with several blows. Before dying, Bill gives up the crypto account password. While police are arresting the remaining two thieves in the laundry room, Helen finds Rock, only to discover he's already dead. Sometime later, police have no leads on John's whereabouts since the stolen money hasn't moved. Helen realizes John must not actually know how to cash out the crypto, and she and Vaughn quietly start watching the businessman instead. When he goes out to eat, Helen notices him heading toward a hotel and follows him, discovering that John is demanding money in exchange for the password. They're set to meet at a tea house in the afternoon. Rather than waiting for backup, Helen goes straight to the tea house, and John recognizes her instantly. She stalls, making small talk to buy time, but John sees through it and quickly knocks her unconscious before trying to flee through the back door, only to find Vaughn has already blocked it. Vaughn confronts John, who starts attacking people with his knife. Customers panic as the two men begin fighting, trading several knife wounds. Vaughn throws a pot of boiling liquid at him to slow him down, and the two end up hurling anything they can grab at each other, using whatever's around as weapons, fighting like men possessed. John slashes at Vaughn and seems ready to finish him off, but Helen, having regained consciousness, strikes him from behind. The two men crash down through a collapsing ceiling. Helen attacks John from behind, and John lunges toward her, but in the struggle, the knife ends up cutting into his own throat. Helen checks his wound. Fortunately, it isn't deep enough to kill him, but he uses the opening to escape. Using the tracking techniques Vaughn had taught her, Helen quickly finds him again. Backup soon arrives, and police block off every road. John tries once more to attack Helen with his knife, but this time, she reads the move and takes him down for good. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison. It's then revealed that Bill and Tim actually had a third triplet brother who'd been adopted by foreign parents as a child. After hearing the password through the station's security camera audio, he unlocks the crypto account and uses the money to place a bounty on Vaughn, seeking revenge for his brother's deaths. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.